Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. So our proverb for today is Proverbs 14:12, and it says, "There is a way that seems right to a man, but in the end it leads to death." And we're about to get into the reading of the 5 love languages. I ask that God bless our Bible scripture today that we just read, and also our reading today. In Jesus' name, amen. So guys, we're on chapter 13. I've been telling you guys that we're going to break this down into 2 days. So we're going to read as much as we can today, and then we'll resume the rest tomorrow. Bear with me a second, guys, so I can kind of show you again what it's going to be talking about. Here's the contents, the table of contents. So 13 is talking about a personal word, frequently asked questions. They have the 5 love languages profile for couples. They have one for him and her, and then they have notes. So you're looking at like pages 165 through 205. So we'll read what we can today, and then the rest, sorry about that, guys. Then the rest we'll do tomorrow. Okay, so a personal word. Well, what do you think? Having read these pages, walked in and out of the lives of several couples, visited small villages and large cities, sat with me in the counseling office, and talked with people in restaurants, what do you think? Could these concepts radically alter the emotional climate of your marriage? What would happen if you discovered the primary love language of your spouse and chose to speak it consistently? Neither you nor I can answer that question until you have tried it. I know that many couples who have heard this concept at my marriage seminars say that choosing to love and expressing it in the primary love language of their spouse has made a drastic difference in their marriage. When the emotional need for love is met, it creates a climate where the couple can deal with the rest of life in a much more productive manner. Consider Mark and Robin. Robin figured out that Mark's primary love language was affirming words, usually involving something specific. On page 166, guys. I like how you're protective of me. It makes me feel loved. It greatly helps me understand him, she said. Now, that's not to imply that I always say the right thing, but simply knowing how he's wired has drawn us closer. Robin says her love language is acts of service. Mark would compliment me about something because that's his love language, and somehow it never made me feel all that great. But when we figured out that what I really value were acts of service, even something small like bringing me coffee in bed in the morning, our marriage took a giant step. We each come to marriage with a different personality and history. We bring emotional baggage into our marriage relationship. We come with different expectations, different ways of approaching things, and different opinions about what matters in life. In a healthy marriage, that variety of perspectives must be processed. We need not agree on everything, but we must find a way to handle our differences so that they do not become divisive. With empty love tanks, couples tend to argue and withdraw, and some may tend to be violent verbally or physically in their arguments. And let's read the bubbles. It says, I dream of a day when the potential of the married couples in this country can be unleashed for the good of humankind. Okay, but when the love tank is full, we create a climate of friendliness, a climate that seeks to understand, that is willing to allow differences and to negotiate problems. I'm convinced that no single area of marriage affects the rest of marriage as much as meeting the emotional need for love. The ability to love, especially when your spouse is not loving you, may seem impossible for some. Such love may require us to draw upon our spiritual resources. A number of years ago, as I faced my own marital struggles, I rediscovered my need for God. As an anthropologist, I had been trained to examine data. I decided to personally excavate the roots of the Christian faith, examining the historical accounts of Christ's birth, life, death, and resurrection. I came to view his death as an expression of love and his resurrection as profound evidence of his power. I became a true believer. I committed my life to him and have found that he provides the inner spiritual energy to love, even when love is not reciprocated. I would encourage you to make your own investigation of the one who, as he died, prayed for those who killed him. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. That is love's ultimate expression. The high divorce rate in our country bears witness that thousands of married couples have been living with an empty emotional love tank. I believe that the concepts in this book could make a significant impact upon the marriages and families of our country. I've not written this book as an academic treatise to be stored in the libraries of colleges and universities, although I hope that professors of sociology and psychology will find it helpful in courses on marriage and family life. I have written not to those who are studying marriage, but to those who are married. And guys, that's my son snoring in the AC in the back. That's fine. But to those who are, because it's very early in the morning when I'm doing these recordings with these books, but you guys are getting them like later on in the morning. But okay, so I've written not to those who are studying marriage, but to those who are married, to those who have experienced the in-love euphoria, who entered marriage with lofty dreams of making each other supremely happy, but in the reality of day-to-day life are in danger of losing that dream entirely. It is my hope that thousands of those couples will not only rediscover their dream, but will see the path to making their dreams come true. I dream of a day when the potential of the married couples in this country can be unleashed for the good of humankind, when husbands and wives can live life with full emotional love tanks and reach out to accomplish their potential as individuals and as couples. I dream of a day when children can grow up in homes filled with love and security, where children's developing energies can be channeled to learning and serving rather than seeking the love they did not receive at home. It is my desire that this brief volume will kindle the flame of love in your marriage and in the marriages of thousands of other couples like you. I wrote this for you. I hope it changes your life. And if it does, be sure to give it to someone else. I would be pleased if you would give a copy of this book to your family, to your brothers and sisters, to your married children, to your employees, to those in your civic club or church or synagogue. Who knows? Together we may see our dream come true. And then, oh, sorry guys, I didn't even realize that it went out because, my phone is still on this lightning thing. I'll be having to fix the settings things because between a certain time, between night and the next morning, it's like for eye comfort things. So again, for a free online study guide, we've been visiting this or referencing this website for like the last 2 weeks. You guys can go to 5lovelanguages.com. They have let me just flip real quick to show you, just in case for you that haven't been following along with us in the book. Maybe this is like your first chapter. You can go back and catch the replay. But this is what we've pretty much read. We're on chapter 13. And these are the collection. This is a collection, all the ones he have. And then that reference, they have books, resources, and then you could take the quiz, I believe. So he's just giving it to you guys again. You can go to 5lovelanguages.com. This group discussion guide is designed to help both couples apply the concepts from the 5 love languages and stimulate genuine dialogue among study groups. So now we're on frequently asked questions. Okay, so this is number 1. Bear with me, guys, a second. Okay, frequently asked questions. Number 1, what if I can't discover my primary love language? I've taken the 5 love languages profile and my scores come out almost even except for receiving gifts. I know that's not my primary love language. What should I do? In the book, I discuss 3 approaches to discovering your love language. First, I observe how you most often express love to others. If you're regularly doing acts of service for others, this may be your love language. If you're consistently verbally affirming people, then words of affirmation is likely your love language. Second, consider what you complain about most often. When you say to your wife, I don't think you'd ever touch me if I didn't initiate it. Sorry guys about that with the book. You're revealing that physical touch is your primary love language. And we're on page 172, guys. When your wife goes on the shopping trip in the city and you say you didn't bring me anything, you're indicating that receiving gifts is your love language. The statement, we don't ever spend time together, indicates the love language of quality time. Your complaints reveal your inner desires. If you have difficulty remembering what you complain about most often, ask your wife. She'll know. Third, think of the requests you make of your wife most often. If you're saying, will you give me a back rub, you are asking for physical touch. Do you think we could get a weekend away this month? It is a request for quality time. Would it be possible for you to clean out your closet this afternoon? Expresses your desire for acts of service. One husband told me that he discovered his love language by simply following the process of elimination. He knew that receiving gifts was not his language, so that left only 4. He asked himself, if I had to give up one of the 4, which one would I give up first? His answer was quality time. Of the 3 remaining, if I had to give up another, which one would I give up? He concluded that apart from sexual intercourse, he would give up physical touch. He could get along without the pats and hugs and holding hands. That left acts of service and words of affirmation. While he appreciated the things his wife did for him, he knew that her affirming words were really what gave him life. He could live for a whole day on one positive comment from her. That's how much they meant to him. It was no stretch to conclude that words of affirmation was his primary love language and acts of service was his secondary love language. Number 2, what if I can't discover my wife's love language? My wife hasn't read the book, but we have discussed the love languages. She says she doesn't know what her love language is. My first suggestion is to give your wife a copy of the 5 love languages, The Secret to Love That Lasts. And that's the book that we're reading now, guys. It looks like this. As she reads it, she'll likely be eager to share her love language with you. However, if she doesn't have the time or interest to read the book, I would suggest you answer variations of the 3 questions discussed in question number 1. How does your wife most often express love to others? What does she complain about most often? What does she request most often? Though your wife's complaints may sometimes irritate you, they're actually giving you valuable information. If your wife says we don't ever spend any time together, you may be tempted to say, what do you mean? We went out to dinner Thursday night. Such a defensive statement will end the conversation. If, on the other hand, you respond, what would you like for us to do? You'll likely get a helpful answer. Your wife's complaints are the most powerful indicators of her primary love language. Another approach is to do a 5-week experiment. The first week, you focus on one of the 5 love languages and try to speak it every day. Observe your wife's response. On Saturday and Sunday, you relax. The second week, Monday through Friday, you focus on another of the love language. Continue with a different language each of the 5 weeks. On the week you speak your wife's primary love language, you will likely see a difference in her countenance and the way she responds to you. It will be obvious that this is her primary love language. Number 3, does your primary love language change as you get older? I think our primary love language tends to stay with us for a lifetime. It's like many other personality traits that develop early and remain consistent. For example, a highly organized person was likely organized as a child. That's very true, guys. I believe I personally believe that's true because that happened for me in my case. A person who was laid back and relaxed likely had those traits as a child. I know people that's like that as well. This is true of numerous personality traits, and it's, different personality traits. Okay, however, there are certain situations in life that make the other love languages extremely attractive. For example, your primary love language may be words of affirmation, but if you're working 2 jobs, then acts of service by your wife may become extremely attractive to you. If she gives you only words of affirmation and doesn't offer to help you with household responsibilities, you may begin to think, I'm tired of hearing you say I love you when you never lift a hand to help me. For the time you're working 2 jobs, it may seem as though acts of service has become, your primary love language. However, if your wife's words of affirmation stop, you quickly realize that it was still your primary love language. If you experience the death of a parent or a close friend, an extended hug by your wife may be the most meaningful thing for you at the moment, even if physical touch isn't your primary love language. There's something about being held in the midst of our grief that communicates that we're loved. So while physical touch isn't your primary love language, it can be very meaningful on certain occasions. Page 175, number 4. Does the 5 love language concept work with children? Most definitely. Inside every child, there's an emotional love tank. If children feel loved by their parents, they will grow up normally. But if their love tanks are empty, they will grow up with many internal struggles. During the teenage years, they'll likely go looking for love, often in the wrong places. For that reason, it's extremely important that parents learn how to love children effectively. Some time ago, I teamed up with the psychiatrist Ross Campbell to write The 5 Love Languages of Children. The book is written for parents and is designed to help them discover their child's primary love language. It also discusses how that love language interfaces with the child's anger, the child's learning, and the child's discipline. One of the points we make in the book is that children need to learn how to receive and give love in all 5 languages. This produces an emotionally healthy adult. Thus, parents are encouraged to give heavy doses of the child's primary love language, then sprinkle in the other 4 regularly. When children receive love in all 5 languages, they will eventually learn how to give love in all 5 languages. Number 5, do children's love languages change when they get to be teenagers? A parent said, I've read the 5 love languages of children, and it really helped us in raising our children. However, now our son has become a teenager. We're doing the same things we've always done, but it doesn't seem to be working. I'm wondering if his love language has changed. I don't believe a child's love language changes at age 13. We're on 176, guys. However, you must learn new ways to speak the child's primary love language. Whatever you've been doing in the past, the teenager considers it childish and wants nothing to do with it. If the teen's love language is physical touch and you've been hugging him and kissing him on the cheek, he may well push you away and say, leave me alone. It doesn't mean that he doesn't need physical touch. It means that he considers those particular touches to be childish. You must now speak physical touch in more adult dialects, such as elbow to the elbow, a fist to the shoulder, or a pat on the back. Or you might wrestle your teen to the floor. These touches will communicate your love to a teenager. The worst thing you can do to a teenager whose love language is physical touch is to withdraw when the teen says, don't touch me. For more on relating to teens, see the 5 love languages of teenagers. Number 6, what if the primary love language of your wife is difficult for you? I didn't grow up in a touching family, and now I've discovered that my wife's love language is physical touch. It's really difficult for me to initiate it. The good news is that all 5 love languages can be learned. It's true that most of us grew up speaking only 1 or 2 of these love languages. These will come natural for us and will be relatively easy to speak. The others must be learned. As in all learning situations, small steps make for big gains. A physical touch is your wife's language, and you're not by nature a toucher. Begin with small things such as putting your hand on her shoulder as you pour a cup of coffee, or give her a love pat on the shoulder as you walk by. These small touches will begin to break down the barrier. Each time you touch, the next touch will be easier. You can become proficient in speaking the language of physical touch. The same is true with the other languages. If you're not a words of affirmation person and you discover that your wife's language is words of affirmation, make a list of statements that you hear from other people or that you read or hear in the media. Stand in front of a mirror and read the list until you become comfortable hearing yourself say those words. Then choose one of the statements to say to your wife. Each time you affirm her, it will become easier. Not only will your wife feel good about your changed behavior, but you'll also feel good about yourself because you'll know that you're effectively expressing love to her. Number 7, are some of the love languages found more among women and others found more among men? I've never done the research to discover if certain love languages are gender slanted. How do we say this word? Anecdotal. Okay. Evidence suggests that more men have physical touch and words of affirmation as their love language, and more women have quality time in receiving gifts, but I don't know if that's statistically accurate. I prefer to deal with the love languages as being gender neutral. I do know that any of the 5 love languages can be the primary love language of a man or the primary love language of a woman. The important thing in marriage is that you discover the primary and secondary love languages of your spouse and speak them regularly. If you do that, you will create a healthy emotional climate for marital growth. Number 8, how did you discover the 5 love languages? For years, I helped couples in the counseling office discover what their spouse desired in order to feel loved. Over time, I began to see a pattern in their responses. I discovered that what makes one person feel loved does not necessarily make another person feel loved. I read over the notes I had made and asked myself this question. When someone sat in my office and said, I feel like my spouse doesn't love me, what did that person want? The answer falls into 5 categories. I later called them the 5 love languages. I started sharing these languages in workshops and study groups. When I did, I saw the lights come on for couples who suddenly realized why they had been missing each other emotionally. When they discovered and spoke each other's primary love language, it radically changed the emotional climate of their marriage. I decided to write a book in which I would share the concept, hoping to influence other couples whom I would never have an opportunity to meet in person. Now that the book has sold over 10 million copies in English and has been translated into 50 languages around the world, my efforts have been more than rewarded. Number 9, do the love languages work in other cultures? Since my academic background is anthropology, this was my question when a Spanish publisher first requested permission to translate and publish the book in Spanish. I initially said, I don't know if this concept works in Spanish. I discovered it in an Anglo setting. The publisher said, we've read the book and it works in Spanish. Then came the French edition, the German, the Dutch, and many more. In almost every culture, the book has become a bestseller of the publisher. This leads me to believe that these 5 fundamental ways of expressing love are universal. However, the dialects in which these languages are spoken will differ from culture to culture. For example, the kinds of touches that are appropriate in one culture may not be appropriate in another. The acts of service that are spoken in one culture may not be spoken in another. But when these cultural adaptations are made, the concept of the 5 love languages will have a profound impact on the couples in that culture. Okay, number 10. Why do you think the 5 love languages has been so successful? I believe that our deepest emotional need is the need to feel loved. If we're married, the person we would most like to love us is our spouse. If we feel loved by our spouse, the whole world is bright and life is wonderful. On the other hand, if we feel rejected or ignored, the world begins to look dark. Most couples get married when they still have the euphoric feelings of being in love. When the euphoric feelings evaporate sometime after the wedding and the couple's differences begin to emerge, they often find themselves in conflict. With no positive plan for resolving conflicts, they resort to speaking harshly to each other. Harsh words create feelings of hurt, disappointment, and anger. We're on page 180, guys, for you follow along with the book. I try to tell you guys the page numbers because I know some of you may be reading and not looking at the page numbers, but just following along and reading but listening to me. And then some of you are just reading and listening along with me with the camera. Okay. Not only do the husband and wife feel unloved, but they also begin to resent each other. When couples read the 5 love languages, they discover why they lost the romantic feelings of courtship and how emotional love can be rekindled in their relationship. Once they begin speaking each other's primary love language, they are surprised to see how quickly their emotions turn positive. With the full love tank, they can process their conflicts in a much more positive manner and find solutions that are workable. The rebirth of emotional love creates a positive emotional climate between them, and they learn to work together as a team, encouraging, supporting, and helping each other reach meaningful goals. Once this happens, they want to share the message of the 5 love languages with all their friends. I believe the success of the 5 love languages can be attributed to the couples who have read it, learned to speak each other's language, and recommended it to their friends. Okay, number 11. What if I speak my wife's love language and she doesn't respond? My wife wouldn't read the book, so I decided to speak her love language and see what happens. Nothing happened. She didn't even acknowledge that I was doing anything differently. How long am I supposed to continue speaking her love language when there's no response? I know that it can become discouraging when you feel that you're investing in your marriage and receiving nothing in return. There are 2 possibilities as to why your wife is not responding. First, and most likely, you're speaking the wrong love language. Many husbands assume that their wife's love language is acts of service, so they start tackling projects around the house. They check off items on the household to-do list at a furious pace. They are sincerely trying to speak their wife's love language. When she doesn't even acknowledge the efforts, her husband may become discouraged. In reality, her primary love language may be words of affirmation. Because her husband feels no love coming from her, he may be verbally critical of her. His critical words are like daggers to her heart, so she withdraws from him. She suffers in silence while he becomes frustrated that his efforts for improving the marriage are unsuccessful. The problem is not his sincerity. The problem is that he's actually speaking the wrong love language. On the other hand, assuming you are speaking your wife's primary love language, there's another reason why she may not be responding positively. If she is already involved in another romantic relationship, either emotionally or sexually, she will often reason that your efforts have come too late. She may even perceive that your efforts are temporary and insincere, and that you're simply trying to manipulate her to stay in the marriage. Even if your wife isn't involved with someone else, if your relationship has been hostile for a long time, she may still perceive your efforts as being manipulative. In this situation, the temptation is to give up, to stop speaking her love language because it's not making any difference. The worst thing you can do is to yield to this temptation. If you give up, it will confirm her conclusion that your efforts were designed to manipulate her. Okay, guys, page 182. The best approach you can take is to continue to speak her love language on a regular basis, no matter how she treats you. Set yourself a goal of 6 months. Okay, there go my alarm. Let me click dismiss, because I want to try to read for at least a minute more or two, however long this is going to give us. Okay, the best approach you can take is to continue to speak her love language on a regular basis, no matter how she treats you. Set yourself a goal of 6 months, 9 months, or a year. Your attitude should be, no matter what her response is, I'm going to love her in her love language over the long haul. If she walks away from me, she will walk away from someone who is loving her unconditionally. This attitude will keep you on a positive path even when you feel discouraged. There's nothing more powerful that you can do than to love your wife even when she's not responding positively. Whatever the ultimate response to your wife, you will have the satisfaction of knowing that you've done everything you could do to restore your marriage. If your wife eventually chooses to reciprocate your love, you will have demonstrated for yourself the power of unconditional love, and you will reap the benefits of the rebirth of mutual love. So number 12. Can love be reborn after sexual infidelity? Nothing devastates marital intimacy more than sexual unfaithfulness. Sexual intercourse is a bonding experience and unites two people in the deepest possible manner. Almost all cultures have a public wedding ceremony and a private consummation of the marriage and sexual intercourse. Sex is designed to be the unique expression of our commitment to each other for a lifetime. When this commitment is broken, it is devastating to the marriage. However, this does not mean that the marriage is destined for divorce. If the offending party is willing to break off the extramarital involvement and do the hard work of rebuilding the marriage, there can be genuine restoration. In my own counseling experience, I've seen scores of couples who have experienced healing after sexual infidelity. It involves not only breaking off the extramarital affair, but also discovering what led to the affair in the first place. Success in restoration is a two-pronged approach. First, the offending party must be willing to explore their own personality, beliefs, and lifestyle that led them to the affair. Sorry guys, just looking at my son. There must be a willingness to change attitudes and behavior patterns. Second, the couple must be willing to take an honest look at the dynamics of their marriage and be open to replacing destructive patterns with positive patterns of integrity and sincerity. Both of these solutions will normally require the help of a professional counselor. Research indicates that the couples who are most likely to survive sexual infidelity are those couples who receive both individual counseling and marriage counseling. Understanding the 5 love languages and choosing to speak each other's language can help create an emotional climate in which the hard work of restoring the marriage can be successful. Number 13. What do you do when your wife refuses to speak your love language even though she knows it? We both read the 5 love languages, took the profile, and discussed our primary love languages with each other. That was 2 months ago. My wife knows that my love language is words of affirmation. Yet in 2 months, I have yet to hear her say anything positive. Her love language is acts of service. I've started doing several things she's asked me to do around the house. I think she appreciates what I'm doing, but she never tells me. Let me begin by saying that we cannot make our spouse speak our love language. Love is a choice. We can request love, but we cannot demand it. We're on page 184, guys. Just in case this thing cut off, we'll know what to pick up on. But I'm going to try to read until it, turn off. Having said that, let me suggest some reasons why your wife may not be speaking your love language. She may have grown up in a home where she received few positive words. Her parents were perhaps very critical of her, thus she did not have a positive role model when it comes to speaking words of affirmation. Such words may be very difficult for her to verbalize. Excuse me, guys. It will require effort on her part and patience on your part as she learns to speak a language that's foreign to her. The second reason that she may not be speaking your love language is that she fears that if she gives you words of affirmation for the few changes you've made, you'll become complacent and not go on to make the major changes she's hoping for. It is the mistaken idea that if I reward mediocrity, I will curtail the person's aspirations to be better. That is a commonly held myth that keeps some parents from verbally affirming children. Of course, it's untrue. If a person's primary love language is words of affirmation, those words challenge the person to greater levels of accomplishment. My suggestion is that you initiate the love tank game discussed in chapter 9. You ask her, on a scale of 0 to 10, how full is your love tank? If she answers anything less than 10, you ask, what could I do to help fill it? Whatever she says, do it to the best of your ability. If you do this once a week for a month, chances are she will start asking you how full your love tank is. And you can begin making requests of her. That is a fun way of teaching her how to speak your love language. Okay, so number 14, page 185, it says, can emotional love return after it's been gone for 30 years? We're not enemies. We don't fight. We simply live in the same house like roommates. Allow me to answer this question with a true story. Justice. Sorry, guys, because he sleeps so well. Okay, we simply live in the same house like roommates. Allow me to answer this question with a true story. A couple came to me at one of my seminars